the fifth line on page Mem Hey. I know that you're a little bit further, and you asked me a question about, but we'll start from that point and go and discuss what was just said here. Let me just get a couple of minutes. Fifth line from the top, the line begins with what hasphirot gufa. And we are still into the principle of pshitus. But at this point we have identified pshitus on two different levels and in two different fashions. A pshitus, what's called the essential pshitus itself, in the object, in the point itself. The spheres themselves are pshitus. Okay, let me continue inside on this line towards the end of the line. But this shehei b'pchinas es spheres. Okay, let me go through this. I want to a little further. The fact that the spheres ein zeh rak mitzad hagilui, that is not exclusively due to the gilui aspect. Kiyim rather masha hakavono hu sheyeh spheres. That there is an additional intent that there should be spheres. Not that it's automatic spheres because it's mitzad hagilui. Ukmeshi yizboyer, as we will explain later on. And then to explain later on, that the essence spheres is the union that the Ayin had projected to express itself in the gvul manner. And this is what I intend to do. Still, being that this entire phenomenon, meaning the spheres also are b'chinas yichud ugvu, they are in the yichud and union and connection to the etzem. V'zeh b'chayev, this connection and this unity compels that it should be sheyir b'chinas pshitus, that it should be in a pshitus manner, k'moy ho'etzem, like the etzem. Like the etzem itself. In other words, here the pshitus is not due to the entity, to the sphere itself. The sphere itself is identified with, from some other perspective, with other reason. The reason there's spheres is because it had intent to accomplish big fool. So it's not a direct and a simple reflection of the Ein Sof. Nevertheless, it still has the Inha pshitus. But here the pshitus is only due to its connection and unity, continued unity with the Ein Sof. And anything that is connected and united with the Etzem, that is compelling that itself should be b'chinas pshitus, k'moy ho'etzem, should be in a pshitus manner like the Etzem itself. The Indian pshitus we discussed already in many different ways. The latest thing we said that the human being, as we said many times, represents a true entity. Meaning to say, he has a fundamental presence in the world, not of a secondary nature, of to serve something or to complement something, but he has a primary presence. In our Mishalim, we have many, but the simplest one, we said, somebody is attending a wedding because he was an invited guest. His presence at the wedding can be referred to as pshitus. He is there not because he chose to be there. Although, of course, he could choose not to be there, but his presence there is due to the reality of the wedding itself. This is an element of pshitus. It is not a fundamental pshitus because it's not compelling that he should be there. Nonetheless, when he is there, there is not a question, why? What are you doing here? The wedding itself, the people invited to the wedding, explain why he is there. This is the concept of pshitus. Now, let us take this motion a little bit to further elaboration. At the wedding is present the chos and kala. The wedding is present their parents. The wedding is present their siblings, parents and grandparents and siblings, and friends. Friends depends on to what extent they are bound up, but real, what they call best friends, also by the wedding be pshitus. I couldn't miss that wedding. I couldn't go to the chuppah without you. But we readily understand the difference between when you say the chosin is the pshitus at the wedding, and the parents have become pshitus at the wedding. Even there, you could sense it and you could recognize the difference. Certainly, when you go down further down the line, the pshitus becomes of a much lesser reality. What is in fact the pshitus element and a friend to be at the wedding? How would you describe it? Would the description Yechidas Yichud Veikus fit? Hello? I'm afraid to answer because I probably have something under my sleeve.
We're not talking about direct versus indirect relation here, are we?
I'm asking a very simple question. How would you describe this pshitus versus the pshitus of the Chos and Kala themselves, all the brothers and sisters, all the parents? They're all different levels of pshitus. Although they all qualify that title, that term. So, will anybody dare and take a chance and say yes or no? No.
It's definitely true.
The friend is there between the pshitus, and the pshitus consists in the fact that he is so close to him. They never went separate. They went on vacation together. They went to yeshiva together. They discussed everything. They learned together. Even up to the chuppah time, they're learning together the chavrusa. That gives a pshitus explanation for his being present at the wedding. But how do you compare that to the chosen being present at the wedding? Or even less than that, or the chosen's parents being present at the wedding? Would you say that the chosen's parents are at the wedding because of the yichud and dveikus? Or there is something deeper, more fundamental there? All right. This is what the Rabbi is explaining. Sphirot in general, though the sphirot that come beside hagilui, the reconciled gilui is pshitus themselves. Because Gilui compels Indian from sphirot. But the Indian Gilui compels Indian from sphirot is when the spheres are enkets. Not when the spheres represent something other than the Ein Sof. Uncomfortably hard. All right. The gam, to be continuing on that line. The line being words with the word mechayiv. The gam, and also, in addition to the fact that they're double to the etzem, because of that they're bechinas pshitus kmei hoetzem. The gam, and also hein bechinas his kalus beatzmusa yisbor. They, the sphirot, are in his kalus manner. They qualify to be called his kalulus, to be nichlat and incorporated be'atzmusa yisborich in atzmus. Bekanal perikutes, as we explained earlier, perikutes. As for this reason, these spheres are called gnuzos. And besides gnuzos means treasured internally. Shehein klulin u'miyochodim be'atzmusi yisborich. That they are, it means that they are incorporated and miyochodim united in atzmus. Although there's sphirot and sphirot. Shehahiskalus mechayev, where the hiskalus compels that it should be the absence of their own mitzius. They're there, but because they're nichlal, they're incorporated in the etzem, that itself compels to understand that there is an absence in mitzius. Heder ha-mitzius sholah. V'yodua, and it is known, the inyan ha-hiskalus hazois, that the principle of this hiskalus, of this incorporation, hi al derech moshol, it is similar. This is, to use an analogy for that, you would say keich ha'esh shebe'evan ha'chalomish, the koyach of fire that is part and parcel of evan ha'chalomish, of the flintstone. This is exactly where we left off before Shavuos. His kalus ha'esh, the fire being incorporated, included in the flintstone. What type of hiskalus? I'd like to discuss. This is something which I wanted to discuss. What kind of incorporation of fire is there in the flintstone? You can soak the flintstone in water any duration of time. When you take it out and you hit it, it'll give off a spark. You cannot extinguish the fire that is incorporated in the flintstone. And yet we say it's incorporated in the flintstone. The haraya. The proof is in the fact that when you hit the flintstone, fire will come out. So what kind of incorporation? What do we mean when we say that there is this kalus ho'esh in chutzon ha'chalomish? Shlomo Yonason had a big difficulty with that. Probably still has. True?
The ways of looking.
Huh? I don't hear.
Yeah, at first glance, yeah.
At first glance? What, second glance? Use the second glance.
Well, I'm open to seeing where it goes, but...
Okay.
Well,
that's good.
Can I ask what the difficulty is? Because maybe I'm sharing it as difficulty.
You're sharing this, it's okay?
No, I don't know what the difficulty is. That's important in this context.
What context?
We're talking about.
Better to have no difficulty.
Do you understand how the fire is contained in the flintstone?
I mean, not exactly, because when I'm seeing it, I see things that they bang into each other, they have a certain friction to it, and then that produces a certain spark. But I don't see how that's specific to a flintstone. I've seen that in many different things.
Any stone, okay. Can you see how the fire is contained in the stone?
I can't explain it, but I can see that there's something there that causes the fire.
All right. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right. I would think that looking at it from a physical viewpoint, looking at the stone, and looking at things the way we see things from a worldly perspective, we would say there is no fire at all in the flintstone. Right, Shmuel? There is no fire in the flintstone. If there were fire, then you would be able to extinguish the fire. Fire and water don't coexist that easily. The flintstone can be wet after soaking for three days, and you hit it, and the spark comes out through the water. Isn't that amazing? There's no fire there. And yet, let's look in the Maimer over here. The fire that is in the Even HaHalomish. And that's a moshel for hasphirot hagnuzis, which means you're talking about some kind of incorporation. Clearly, this incorporation is not a physical incorporation, and it cannot be explained in the manner that you explain physical incorporation. You have to find a different way, a different approach to this concept. You have a sponge lying in water. You take the sponge out of the water. You say the sponge is wet. The sponge is going to be wet for a long, long time because it has absorbed water. Even after you squeeze it out, there's still water in it. That's why it's wet. Then you can explain it in simple, what we call worldly terms. There are two things that have been joined together, and they remain two separate things. Even though you don't see the water per se, but you have clear effect of the presence of the water. And after a while, it will dry up, and it will no longer have water in it. So it's a real presence of water. Here we're saying there is fire in the flintstone, but there is not a presence of fire. There's not a presence of fire. What do we mean? Okay, our job is to try to understand what is being told, what is being implied, not as cautious. Therefore, our approach would be: what do we mean by saying that there is fire included in the flintstone? You understand the approach, the different formulation of the question? From worldly perspective, you would ask, show me, where is the fire? What are you talking about? We don't ask this question. We don't see any fire. And yet the Mimer says that there is fire incorporated therein. The Mother clearly is not trying to tell us that what we are saying is a lie. And this is in fact the reason it's brought down as a moshel, because this is really a different kind of hiskalus. You can't identify it as an entity. And yet the Mimer insists that there is hiskalus. So our question now is, what do we mean by the word hiskalus when we say this? You with me? Huh?
Yeah.
In other words, what we are saying is, you can't identify the fire there. And you cannot identify it even by testing, because you put it in water and it doesn't get extinguished. It's not that you cannot identify by touch, by feel, by sight. You cannot identify it even by using some kind of a technical or a super means of identification. That which will lead you to conclude there is no fire in there. There is no fire in there. We can vouch for it. But the only reason we say there is fire in there is because when we hit the stone, a spark comes out.
That statement, that right there, the spark results, the spark comes out. I mean, I understand the mind is saying that the spark is within
One second. But before you ask a question, you answer your question.
Well, I'd have to say that the stone retains this quality even when wet. And that is the quality of giving off a spark when struck. I don't know if I can go further and say that spark is within the stone. I don't have an answer there.
All right, you don't have, but this is what we have to approach.
Right, but even the mashal and the conclusion that we wet the stone, showing on how whatever spark is now extinguished, or it's no fire, and yet when you hit it, it shows the spark comes out. That logic doesn't. If I have a gem in a dark room and then light comes through and hits the gem and it gives off a sparkle, I don't say the sparkle is within the gem.
Okay. All right. But the mimer says that this fact that the fire comes out, I'm saying asking questions is not a kunz.
Why?
Our duty is to explain.
Yeah.
The Maimon says the fact that the fire comes out when you hit the flintstone, that means that the fire is incorporated in the flintstone. It's kalus.
Okay. I don't have a feel for what it means a spark comes out. That's where I'm...
Okay. What do you mean? Something doesn't come out?
No, I have a feeling like a spark results. Like
Okay.
When
A spark results. The spark results by hitting the stone. So
Right.
the stone has some kind of a cause, some kind of relationship to the spark.
it has an interaction with the other stone, yeah, but that it comes
Is
out.
it a participant in creating the spark or not?
Yeah, it's one of the elements.
And one of the elements, fine. And in that participant, which means that it has the root for creating the spark. What form that root is, this is our struggle here right now.
Okay.
This is an extremely important principle, and we will not understand unless we want to understand it. If we want to stay in so to speak, in worldly parameters and understand this kind of thing, there's no way. This is similar to what we say many times. The sun comes out and it makes bright the world, light brightens the world, not because it shoots out rays of light, but because the sun is an etzem behiri. We repeated this many times. That's also counterintuitive from a worldly perspective. We'll interrupt now. And are we having a class tonight?
Tonight is Wednesday.
Tonight is Wednesday night.
People got me to know that I'm the one that stops the share. I don't like that job.
Yeah.